Hello, welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast YouTube channel. My name is Samaria, and I'm joined by my best friend and co-host Miyosha. And today we're reviewing Married at First Sight, season 16, episode 13.
13.
Okay. But before we jump into that, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to comment as much as possible what your thoughts were on this episode.
Yeah.
I am just going to say, I feel like Shaquille and Kirsten are carrying this show this season on their backs because they're the ones who I have the most about again this week. So
hmm
for the third week in a row. So can't wait to
Yeah.
talk about them. But let's start with Clint and Gina.
Yeah. I don't have anything other than we really see that the salon is life for her. She
Girl.
takes us to the beauty school where she made the transition.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was kind of awkward a bit. I don't know.
I said at this point, I feel like I work at Gina's salon. That's how much I know about it. That's how much I've heard about it. I know all the girls who work there. I need to be collecting a check at this point because that's how much I know about Gina's hair salon. So yeah, I thought that was overkill, but that's Gina.
And I've worked in the salon, so I get the aspect of it feels like a family because you do spend a lot of time there and there's a lot of camaraderie. I've been in that space before, so I get it, but I feel like also it's her way of saying like this is as far as you're going to get to know me.
Yes.
She's not broadening the experiences that she's showing him. I don't think we've seen any other family come around or
Not since the
anything.
wedding.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is as much of Gina as he's gonna get to know. So,
And he, I guess, asked them, "Oh, what is she like as a boss?" And I'm like, "Didn't we have this conversation like 3 episodes ago already when he visited the salon?" So it just felt like very redundant.
mhm.
But Clint is always, good with the girls. I did note that. Like you can take him and he at least tries to blend in and to be friendly and all that. So I thought that was good. The only other thing I have was at the beginning, she said, "Oh, Clint's perseverance makes me more attracted to him." And I was like, why you lying, Gina? You ain't got to lie, Craig. Like, why are you trying? Like, we watched the show. You do not have to. We know you don't like this man. But yeah, so I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, she's trying to keep it cute. She doesn't want to be an Alyssa. So
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. So now we just have to wait until decision day. We already know what it's gonna be. Yeah.
Or until I guess Dom shows up again in one of the episodes because it
Oh
showed
yeah,
him
yeah,
some,
yeah.
yeah. So okay, that's it
All
for
right.
them.
Yeah.
Nicole and Chris. Okay.
What are your thoughts on Chris?
He mentioned the exes again. So she pours her heart out and tells him how she was as a young girl. And he's like, "Yeah, I couldn't have been with Nicole at that age." I was like, dang. Like she brought it up. Apparently it was something she was very sensitive about. And so for him to say that, I thought was interesting to say the least.
Who could be with 13-year-old us?
Anybody. Yeah. I couldn't even be with myself. But no, I said that Nicole is definitely walking on eggshells to make sure Chris still likes her. And it reminded me of one of our podcast episodes. So we had a podcast episode where the guest was talking about freezing her eggs. And
Mhm.
remember, she said that when she would go on dates before freezing her eggs, she would be like, "Ooh, I don't want to say too much because you don't know what might
Mm.
turn somebody off. And this could be my last chance to have kids or whatever." But then freezing her eggs kind of freed her up. That's how it felt. Like Nicole feels like this is her last chance. So she has to be careful what things she says to him so that she doesn't turn him off.
Yeah, I wrote down, I wonder if there's any red flags or things that she doesn't like about him.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I feel like we haven't heard anything from her but positivity, which
Mm-hmm.
I get she's trying to enjoy the high, and maybe there is nothing really wrong or nothing worth talking about, maybe on camera.
Hmm.
But I definitely wrote down like, okay, Chris is saying things here and there, but how does Nicole feel? And I just wonder how much of her being into him is just her really, really, really wanting this to work, or does
Yeah.
she really, really like him like
And
that?
she's trying to be the opposite of what she's been before. So I wonder if she's trying to be too much of what she's not and not realizing the value in who she is. But she was on the
Mhm.
after party, so she did say, when they both did the voices at the end, which I thought was a cute scene, them doing
Mhm.
like all the voices. She said that she felt the most like herself in that
Mhm.
moment. And so I thought, okay, cool. So at least she can be her like goofy self, but I wonder if she can be her flawed self.
Mhm.
So
And as much as he's like, oh, I couldn't be with her if she was like X or what she used to be. I wonder if he's also made those comments in front of her as
mhm.
well. That could also be kind of making her walk a tightrope.
Yeah, I feel for her. It's gonna come. Eventually, it's gonna come out. I just hope that
Mhm.
he isn't so. I hope that he's not narrow-minded enough to be like, okay, well, this is gonna be done. Like he already is keeping his lease or renewing his lease, right, for a whole year or something
Mhm.
like that. So it's. I don't know about them. Yeah, beyond
Yeah.
decision day. I think decision day is going to be a yes, but beyond decision day, I just hope she can be less eggshell walking and more herself.
Yeah. Yeah. The mask will come off if it is there. So
Yeah.
yep, that's all I had.
The other thing I had was that he talked about his rough childhood. So, but that was literally it.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jasmine and
Move.
Airris.
I mean, y'all tell us in the comments, did we miss anything on those
Yeah.
first two couples? Let us know. What did we miss? Maybe we fell asleep for a minute or two during the episode.
There wasn't too much. There wasn't too
Mm.
much. Okay.
All
So
right.
Jasmine and Airris, I'll let you start us off.
Yeah, so Jasmine starts off meeting with her friend,
Mhm.
and I feel like there are moments where she's saying how she really feels, but then I also feel like there are times where she knows she's in this process, so she has to
Put on.
put on. And so some of the things she was saying to the friend, I was just like, really? Um, is that how you really feel? Even later on, she did the same thing later on when she was meeting with Shaq. She said something to the effect of like, oh, sometimes I feel like I really am into this marriage.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
heard
want to
that.
jump ahead too much, but the
Yeah.
scene with the friend, I think she is somewhat trying to save face just a bit, and I understand. But also at the same time, I'm like, I just keep it 100, keep it a buck, girl. It's
Yeah.
okay. Like we've been watching. So
Yeah. I know someone in our comments was like, okay, is there somewhat of a double standard, like uh being in support of Jasmine pulling back, but when Shaq did it wasn't an issue. And I did just want to clarify, we were both here for Shaq pulling back because we think he's very valuable. And if he's not getting what he deserves, then I think him pulling back was necessary. And I enjoyed watching that. And I do think it's
Mhm.
Jasmine's time. So it's not like a double standard. It's both of them were putting everything and their partners weren't giving as much. So they needed to pull back quite a bit. So
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
why I'm in
one other
support.
thing with the friend,
Hmm.
Jasmine, don't mention how you think he's cute anymore.
Just cut it out. But she did say, the attraction is not there as much. And I was like, okay, that's how we like to hear you talk.
Yeah, you're moving in the right
Yeah.
direction.
So Eris has been the one who's been more hesitant to like open up. And I think he opened up a little bit more this episode. What do you think?
Mm, he did, but I don't know. I think it's a little too late. And in the areas where he's opened up, so he did open up about the dad more and just talking more about that situation. So we've
Yeah.
heard that. He also opened up about his childhood and moving around a lot and
Hmm.
maybe not fitting in or having to adjust. So we're hearing a little bit more,
Yeah.
but I don't know that it's really enough to move Jasmine to open up more. Like, I don't know. I just don't. The vibe I was getting is that it's not enough.
And he probably won't be able to give much more because he's not into her like that, but I can see him trying. He said something though on the
Mm.
after party that, like, sometimes, he says these things and I'm like, okay, Eris, I want to be on your team, but then he always messes it up. But on the after party, he said, of course she's pulling back because I didn't do a good job of creating a safe space for her. So I expect her to act like this. And I'm like, okay, at least he understands why she's acting the way that she's acting during the after party time. Because on the show, he was like, she asking me to open up, I'm opening up and it's not working. It's like, okay.
Also, he spent the first how many, what, 4, 5 episodes talking about how he wasn't attracted to her. And
Mhm.
so I understand why she's not rushing to open up or put too much energy into it because yes, you're opening up, but you're not also saying, like, okay, well, the attraction is growing, or this is a way that
Mhm.
we can maybe be more intimate in a not intimate way. And
Right.
so it's like, yeah, you're opening up, but I mean, not more than in a friendship way.
Hmm.
At least that's the vibe that I'm getting. And so if I were her, it's like, all right, that's all fine and Danny, you're telling me about these stories, but you, is your attraction growing? Like, where do we stand with that? Don't waste my time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, the reason why that comment stood out to me in the after party was because I wrote in my notes during the show, he's not a
Mm-hmm.
safe space for her. Like, he's just not, and maybe he's trying to be right now, but like you said, it probably is too late. What, they have 18 days to decision day. So I think when she was talking to Shaq and said, sometimes I feel like he's it, but then
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, he's just here for the process or whatever. I think she's right to think that. I don't think I don't think Eris is trying to be mean to Jasmine. I actually
Mm-hmm.
think he's trying to preserve her feelings as much as he can, but realistically he just isn't into her. So I think that's what we're seeing when he's not fully opening up. He's like, I don't want to give her too much and then lead her on, which is something that he was doing at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't want to give her too little that her feelings are hurt. So I think deep down inside, there is some care that he has for her. Like, he doesn't want to crush her, and that's probably why he's operating the way that he is. But I definitely don't think he wants to stay married to her.
Well, if that's the case, then why in your confessionals are you complaining about her not opening up? I guess. Also, when he goes on to talk about how he's used to jumping ship, yeah, I get you're opening up, but just know that is not reassuring to a person who you've already told that you're not attracted to in that way.
And who knows that you're probably going to say no on decision day. Like, if she doesn't know, I would be surprised if she's expecting him to say yes on decision day. So yeah, I think he was he was trying to be more open, but that's that's kind of not the thing to say to someone who
Yeah,
already expects you to be out.
yeah, and or at least counteract it with saying like, okay, that's how I used to be, but in an area where I've grown or
Mhm.
maybe have not done that as of recently.
Mhm.
I've been at my job for this amount of time. I've lived here for X amount of time. Like, I'm finally settling
Mhm.
in. So at least try to reassure if you care, but I don't think
Yeah.
he does. But
So we want to move on to the couples date because I thought that was such a cute date. We
yeah.
didn't do that. I don't even know what it's called. It's not laser tag because there weren't lasers.
And
It
it
was
wasn't paintball. I
right. It
don't
was
know
like a
what that
mixture.
was. Yeah.
But if you guys know what that's called, please let us know because I'm about to
Yeah.
be Googling the game where you shoot each other and paintball is probably going to be the only thing that comes up. But I thought it was a really cute date. I thought it was super
Hmm.
fun. Shaq and Kirsten always do fun activities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So,
the conversations are strained. So they got to keep it active.
oh, okay. So, do you want to talk about her talk with Shaq, which they played up and made it seem like Shaq was hitting on her?
No, I didn't think he was hitting on her.
I
He was
didn't.
just complimenting her. And I think going back to the honeymoon where he was kind of the bone carrier of the information that Airris wasn't attracted to her. And I
Mhm.
think he's been kind of seeing what's been going on. He's like, okay, I'm gonna lift my sister up. I
Yeah,
appreciated the compliments and him hyping her up.
same.
Nothing about it seemed
Romantic.
inappropriate, and she
Yeah.
received it. So yeah, I was here for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as if we could love Shaq anymore. Not to say he's the perfect person, because I think he has shown some of his faults too. But I love him for this show. I wish everybody came in and took it as seriously as he did and
Hmm.
was as much of a gentleman as he is. So yeah, I was definitely for him, like speaking life into her.
Hmm.
So she said she was happy with his vulnerability, but at the same time, she feels like he's counting down the days, which he is probably doing.
Hmm.
But she's trying to stay true to herself. And one thing that I
Hmm.
appreciated Shaq saying was, okay, you have to think about, what does Jasmine want? And so I think that was a good point for her. I think she's already started to think through, what do I want? And that's why she's pulled back. But I appreciated that he said that, so that she's not
Hmm.
focused on, okay, well, he's making this little effort, so maybe I should, stay in it a little bit longer. It's more of, what do I need? And can he realistically give that to me? Which he cannot. So,
Yeah. I liked how when he was asking her, no, I think she when they were talking about how Kirsten wants him to get her a house and that whole
mhm.
scenario. We won't go into that just
Ooh.
yet. We'll
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
on that. But he basically expressed that he feels a way that he hasn't met her dad.
yeah.
And I like how Jasmine circled back, like, no, but are you really
Right. Does
okay
it
with
bother
it?
you? So it
And
does bother
so,
you.
so what that showed me was that I think in these group settings, Shaq is also protective of him and Kirsten's image as a couple,
Yeah.
uh, to a certain degree, to where he's like, do I really want to put that out and be vulnerable in that way?
Yeah.
Uh, but he was able to keep it real, but keep it cute. Like, yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
as it kind of should. So.
So she said something about it on the after party, but I'll save that for when we talk about them. You know what's funny about Airris and Kirsten sit down? So somebody tweeted this. They said Airris's eye contact is sniper level on Kirsten, but he can barely stare at his wife as if she's Medusa. And I thought that was so funny, but it's true. Like his eye contact wasn't as awkward as it
Hmm.
Jasmine. Like he was actually looking at her and not looking to the side and just talking.
Yeah. Gosh, just a mess.
Are you ready for the next group or the next
Yeah, I was trying to see if there was anything else.
on Jasmine and Airris?
Oh yeah, so I think it was the scene where were they on the bed and they were talking. Either way, she said something like, "Yeah, I ain't got nothing to say or I ain't got nothing for you."
Yeah.
Do you remember that dialogue? Were they
I
on the
don't know what
bed?
it was about though. I
Yeah.
don't remember.
So her energy was very much giving that the majority of this episode.
I mean, I think she knows it's over. It's like they have 18 days to decision day. So that means they've spent what, like a month and some days together. I
Mhm.
think she just sees like, okay, in these, what, 3 weeks or so, like there's not two and some change. Yeah, like,
Mhm.
yeah, there's not much that's gonna happen. Like he's not gonna fall head over heels, and I do think she's completely checked out.
Yeah. Really, as she should at this point.
Yeah,
Just
at
cut
this
your
point, let's just
losses.
be cool. Let's do these fun activities together and finish it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that was all I had. Y'all
Okay.
let us know if we missed anything.
Yeah, like I said, I think Kirsten and Shaq are carrying the season just because I feel like we're seeing more of a realistic relationship.
Hmm.
Um, as far as like the conversations that they're having, the ways that they have to communicate and all that stuff. I don't know. But I think some of the issues that they have, maybe it's especially in this episode,
Mm-hmm.
seem more like, okay, a regular couple might be having these
Mm-hmm.
conversations about like, okay, what are the roles that are expected of each of us? So
Yeah.
that
Well, she came out swinging.
baby, okay. So so she said, I mean, I'll be on the deed, but you'll have to buy me a house. And she was being playful, but she wasn't playing. Like she
Mm-mm.
was very serious. Um, and I
What did
feel
she
like,
say? Wait, in that scene though, she said something like, "This is me."
yeah. Now, Kirsten, let's be for real. And he's like, he was clearly taken aback by it, like, I have to buy you a house. Like, girl, you're a whole realtor. And I don't know if she has another profession, but even if that's it, like, you're a realtor and I'm supposed to buy us a $2.9 million house, which we found out later. Like, come on. So,
And I'll just preface it and say, like, I think as women, we can have our expectations, we can have our wants, our needs. It's fine. I think the issue is just the way she approached and
yeah.
the way that she bought it up.
Mhm.
uh he seemed a bit bamboozled by it. And so I think if she would have just inquired about his desires, his wants,
Mhm.
sprinkled in some of her expectations,
Yeah.
but kind of explore, like, okay, well, what do you think about this, or how do you feel,
Yeah.
kind of see where he stands up front, because the vibe that I'm getting is that he's open to it. I just don't know that he, or really anybody, wants to be told what to do.
Exactly. Like, even if she would have presented it as, hey, this is what I want. This is what I see my life looking like. This is what I see our lives looking like. Even that would have been fine. But I do feel like she was doing this in a way to like test and see what his response would be, kind of test the boundaries. But thankfully he's not
Mm-hmm.
the type to like go for that, so yeah, I definitely think it was inappropriate the way that she approached it initially. They have a conversation later on in the episode that I think is way more appropriate, but this wasn't it at all.
Yeah. And even within that conversation, she did start to compare him to other men, so her dad and other women she knows, husbands, and
Yeah.
that's just a no
Never a
no.
good,
Like,
yeah, you don't ever do that.
like,
Never.
oh, I know other women, their husbands bought them a 3 carat ring, and it's like, girl,
Right.
that is not how you approach the
Especially,
conversation. Oh,
yes. And I think she definitely should have let it go. She never should have brought it up this way in the first place. But when he's like, okay, reasonably, I'm still paying for my education. I still have these things. My lease is up in 3 months. Like, he's clearly communicating, this is not something I'm prepared for. At that point, you need to recognize and be like,
mm-hmm.
oh, okay, so if that's not the timeline, then what timeline are you thinking? Like you said, get his input, as opposed to, well, yeah, that's what I expect. That's just kind of, that's me, or whatever.
And I think it would help the conversation go forward a bit more
Mhm.
if they were further along. Like, the time frame is so short. You went from, I don't really like men with bald head. Okay, I like him, or I'm kind of into him, and you've been playing hard to get. Okay, now y'all are finally moving towards intimacy, I guess. And
Yeah.
so I think just the timeline combined with the way she's bringing it up,
Mhm.
I mean, you just kind of let this man know you was into him.
Last week,
Now you
like just
asking for
last
a
week.
house.
Right. Okay, I like you now. I would like a house and 2 kids. Like, come on, you cannot spring that
Girl.
on somebody. Oh man. Okay. So I thought it was interesting. So Kirsten's like perception of her family and then her parents splitting up, I thought was interesting. But she was only 8, so
Mhm.
to me, it's like okay, that's the age where you're like, oh, my family's so great, and so something like that really could have a huge impact on how you move forward. Which I think for her, it absolutely did. But she
Mhm.
takes him back to this home, and she's like, my dad was a provider. Somebody tweeted like, Kirsten, your dad did not have y'all in no $2.9 million house, and you know it. So it's like her saying, my dad was a provider and nobody had to tell him. I feel like in that conversation, Shaq was like, he was establishing his views on the traditional home, and he seemed very in favor of it during this conversation to me. But he's just like, I don't want to have to be told, like, you don't have to tell me that this is what I would want anyway. You don't have to be the one forcing me to do that. But I think it went over her head in that conversation because she kept talking about her dad.
Yeah, because she said, like, no one had to tell my dad what to do as you're sitting here telling Shaq what he needs to do.
Also, your dad is divorced, so
That's another thing. So it's like, okay, you had this ideal traditional setup, but only for not even half of your childhood.
that's so, and we're not shaming her parents or anything, but it's just
No,
like she has to be very realistic. Okay, so your dad was a provider, but apparently that's not all that it takes for a successful marriage. And she
no.
realized that. Yeah.
And on and then what adds to this is that she doesn't want to introduce Shaq to her dad yet. And so he's like, I want to meet this person that has set up these expectations in your mind, or you've put them in your mind because of this person. And
Yes.
so I understand him wanting to meet her dad and get to know
Absolutely.
him and understand kind of where all of this is coming from, also get his perspective and what was the dynamics like from age 8 until 18 when your parents separated. So
Mhm.
you have these expectations of Shaq of a person that on a from a person that he hasn't met yet.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially seeing how close Shaq is to his family, I can understand how him not meeting the dad would really eat him up. She did say though on the after party, like there have been attempts to bring them together at this point. So it's not like she hasn't tried. It's just that it hasn't happened yet. So she's like her dad had been traveling, and they had spoken to each other on the phone because her dad wasn't in town or something like that. So she felt like, man, he knew I had made those attempts. So for him to just kind of make it seem like I wasn't even trying to get them in the same room, I guess was hurtful to her. So,
Mhm.
yeah. So either way, they haven't met each other yet. Uh, okay. So, okay. I think other stuff that I wrote down was, oh, Shaq said, as a man should be. And he said, allow me to make it happen, which I thought was very key. That's the thing that went over her head, him saying, allow me to make it happen. Like, don't be pushing me. Uh,
Yeah.
I liked how that conversation went more than I liked the one at their house because I
Yeah.
think he was able to, like, he wasn't so much on the defensive. Like, he was able to say, oh, okay, you want a traditional home? I have those types of values too, so it wasn't just her pushing it on him. He was able to say, this is what I would want to do. This is how I want to take care of my family as well. So I think this went better than the sitting down. Um,
Yeah.
so they met with his godmother and god sister.
Mhm.
This was our first time hearing all the details of the accident, right? That was a lot.
Yeah.
That
And then
was
being separated for 2 weeks.
yeah, and not even knowing how the others were doing.
Yeah.
Why? I don't. Why would you even do that? So yeah, that was super traumatic, and I don't know. I didn't think we had heard those details before because I was shocked to hear all
Yeah.
of
What I took away from that whole scene is that it's for her a major plus how much of a family person
that.
he
Mhm.
is. And it shows also that even with distance, he's still really close with his family.
Yes.
I know a lot of people, they can think like, oh, it's because we all live really close together. But the real test is when you're hours away or a plane ride away and you're still able to be really connected. So for me, that was like more green flags for Shaq. Like he
Absolutely.
knows and wants to stay connected with his family. And as a woman, hopefully that's reassurance that, okay, when we go down the path of having children, that even if something happens with us, that you will still be all in.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I agree. So something his godmother and sister, I can't believe which which I think it was the godmother. So
mhm,
she said he's gonna take care of you. So make sure you take care of him. And I felt like that did two things. So one, I think it reassures her of like
mhm,
him being the traditional man, so like the provider and the protector and all those things. If she had a question about it, she can see now like how he has been those things
mhm,
in his family, and how his family thinks highly of him and believes that he can carry on those roles. But also it kind of like communicates to her he's gonna need reciprocity. Like you can't have him taking care of you this entire time and you not. So it sets the expectation for reciprocity. He's gonna take care of
mhm.
you. Make sure you take care of him. It's not all on him. It's on you too. He's gonna need somebody to be there for him. So I really liked when the godmother said that.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully it kind of gives her a clue to like shift her energy a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
I think she sees herself as being a traditional woman. We haven't seen it as much in the show, but I think like that would be her ideal. From what she's said and how she's been moving, I think that would be her ideal um situation. So
yeah,
she
and I would hope that the experts wouldn't pair her with someone who would be just like against having that set up. Hopefully that's something they talked about
yeah.
early
She
on.
got lucky with Shaq this process. She really did. She did. Like his level of patience and how good of a guy he seems to be. And then
Mhm.
like her being slow to reciprocate, like she
I, I will say though, something that Shaq said when he sat down with Jasmine though
Mhm.
was that he was still taking it day by day. And
Mhm.
so while I do think that he is still all in on this process,
Yeah.
he's not very, very green either. I don't
Mhm.
think. I think he's really evaluating, like, okay, is this a person that I really want to spend the rest of my life with?
Yeah.
So,
As he should be. As he should. As anybody in this process should be, of course. But I think he knows that there are certain things he probably needs to see out of her to make sure that this can be what it needs to be. So I don't fault him.
yeah.
I don't
Because what
fault
did he say? Was it last episode or the one before? It was like, it can't all be about Kirsten.
Yeah. So in her conversation with Airris, she said that he's kind and attractive. I said, "Ooh, you think he's attractive now?" But no, he's kind and attractive. And then she talked about how communication is a struggle. So I do hope that they're able to figure that out because that's a huge piece.
The way she said it though was like, oh yeah, we're basically saying the same things. And I try to tell him that we're basically saying the same things, but in two different ways. And I'm like, but are y'all?
I don't know.
I don't
I don't
know.
know. Okay, my favorite part of the episode, or one of my favorite parts, was when they were like after the date, when they were at the house and
Mm,
he's talking to her, and Kirsten was not playing about her food. Okay, she was like, "You could talk, but I'm gonna be tearing up this salad," and she did tear up that salad. So I thought that was funny. Her talking, her talking while she's chewing, apparently is like his pet peeve, and that came
mm.
up again this episode. I think it was really cute to see. Like, please finish eating before you start talking to me. Um, and then they started the conversation about the whole house thing. And one thing I really liked about this was him putting his foot down, essentially. Like, you had said that you expect me to buy a house and it's just on me. Like, I think it was a good conversation because he was trying to really like tease out, what are the expectations that you have? Because I might have different expectations. And if you are making money and working, and so am I, maybe we would want to buy that house together as opposed to just
Mhm.
me. And she was like, "Oh, I was just playing with you. I was just joking." He said, "Kirsten, you were not joking, because we all know the truth disguised as a joke." And she was not playing at all. And I
Mm-mm.
love that he just like called her out, well, not called her out like to be negative, but that he was like, "No, you saying you joking, but there's some truth in it. So we're gonna have to get down to the bottom of it and see what's real and what's not."
And she was also kind of running from the conversation, like, "Ah, don't get too crazy. And I don't know if I want to talk about this." And so she was also running, didn't really want to have the conversation. But
Mhm.
I'm glad that he was like, no, we're going to talk about it to see
Right.
exactly where you stand. Now it's, oh, we are going to buy a house. I also think what heightens this conversation is the fact that she's a realtor. Um,
Mhm.
and so she knows all what goes into buying and maintaining a home, I'd assume. And so I think he's trying to understand exactly where her expectations are, especially since this is her area of expertise.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
And then she was like, Shaquille, first of all, it only became we because he had the conversation. If he wouldn't have
mm,
pushed this conversation, it still would have been a, yeah, I want you to buy me a house. I want, which again, there's nothing wrong with, saying, I want you to be the one
mhm,
to like provide. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, as long as it's determined at the beginning of the relationship, or whenever it's relevant to the relationship, I should say. Um, but she said later on, Shaquille, because she doesn't call him Shaq, Shaquille, I don't want you to put that type of pressure on yourself. And I said, now, Kristen, who was putting the pressure on Shaquille? Because it was not him putting that pressure on himself. You said something that led him to feel that pressure. So I thought it was funny how she like said what she wanted, was not joking at all. And then once it came up, she's like, "Oh, I'm just playing. I was just joking with you." No, you're not.
and she also brought up again, like, oh, I know people whose husbands buy them stuff. Like, oh, something about like getting her a Lamborghini, like upgrading her from her Mercedes. She also said something about, and I don't know if it was that conversation or the one before, but she said something about, I want to be able to say my husband bought me a house. And so for me, that brought up that she's big on appearances and just how things maybe look,
Mhm.
and maybe she's had in her head like this is how things are going to go.
Yeah.
So that also confirmed for me, like, girl, no, you wasn't joking, because that was a very specific comment, which is fine.
Like if he would have been fine with it, it would have never been, "Oh, I'm joking." It wouldn't have. But I will say, her backing down a bit and saying, we would see what we could do. I hopefully she carries through with that. But I think that is an important part of it. Like, yeah, you might have wanted him to do all this, but if he's saying this is not possible, or I'm not able to give that lifestyle at this stage, you need to be
Mhm.
comfortable as a partner to be like, okay, so what stage are we at right now? How can we work together to make the dreams that we want happen? So yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me see if there was anything else on the after party that came
Yeah.
up. Oh, so Keisha Naipulia, with the conversation at the beginning where she's like, "Yeah, you have to buy me a house." She's like, "Girl, you are scaring this man right now." And she said she realized that she was scaring him, and she realized that
Mm.
she was getting carried away, and that she has to take steps towards whatever it is that she needs to say, or whatever it is that they need to accomplish. So, yeah, that's all from the after party.
Yeah.
And that's all from the episode.
Yeah.
Um, guys, we do have a new podcast episode coming out tomorrow. We have a guest talking about life with a PCOS. So if that's something that interests you, definitely check out that episode. It'll be on our YouTube channel, and it will also be on all podcast platforms. So please support our podcast. And we will see y'all next week for another review.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.